My roommate Jake said, "Dude, your girlfriend Sarah is totally into me. She keeps texting me late at night." I laughed it off until I saw the screenshots he showed everyone at our friend's barbecue. That's when I revealed something about Jake that made Sarah's interest in him evaporate instantly. I'm Alex, 27, male, and I swear my stomach is still in knots writing this. It's weird how one stupid moment at a barbecue can flip your entire reality upside down. For context, I've been living with my roommate Jake, 28, male, for almost 2 years now. Jake's complicated. He's the kind of guy everyone calls the life of the party. Loud laugh, quick jokes, that easy confidence that makes him magnetic in a group. People are drawn to him, but if you've lived with him, you start to notice the cracks. He's messy as hell, always late with rent unless I remind him, and he has this way of making everything about him. Still, we got along. He was fun to hang out with when I wasn't working crazy hours, and I honestly considered him a friend. Then there's Sarah, my girlfriend. She's 25. We've been dating for about a year and a half. Sarah's nothing like Jake, thank God. She's quieter, thoughtful, kind. She'll bring over groceries and actually cook with me instead of just ordering takeout. She remembers little details about my day that even I forget. She's not flashy, but she's real, and I love that about her. So imagine my confusion when, about a month ago, Jake smirks at me one night and says, "Dude, your girlfriend Sarah is totally into me. She keeps texting me late at night." I laughed it off. Like, actually laughed. Jake has this way of saying ridiculous things just to get a rise out of people, and I figured this was one of those moments. I mean, Sarah? My Sarah? No way. She barely texts anyone after 10 p.m. because she's usually knocked out by then. I told him he was full of it, and he just shrugged with that smug little grin. You'll see. Fast forward to last weekend. We're at this barbecue with a bunch of mutual friends. Burgers on the grill, beers in hand, everyone buzzing around the backyard. And out of nowhere, Jake decides it's the perfect time to pull out his phone and start showing people screenshots of Sarah texting him late at night. I felt my face go hot, like the blood drained straight to my stomach. Everyone crowded around, laughing, whispering, giving me those side eyes like I was some idiot who didn't know what was going on. Jake was eating it up, soaking in the attention like he'd just won some sick contest. He was even narrating it, cracking jokes. "See, bro, she's always asking about me. Can't keep away." And I just stood there, gripping my beer so tight I thought the glass might crack. But here's the thing. Jake didn't realize that while he thought he was humiliating me, he was handing me the perfect setup. Because I've known something about him for months. Something I never planned to say out loud. Something Sarah definitely didn't know. And when I opened my mouth in that moment, when I told everyone the truth, it was like dropping a grenade right in Jake's lap. Sarah's face changed instantly. Whatever interest she'd been entertaining in him evaporated right there in front of everyone. And Jake? Let's just say he didn't take it well. After the barbecue, I couldn't shake it. The image of those screenshots, Jake's smug face while everyone laughed, it just played on a loop in my head. I barely tasted the burger on my plate. Even Sarah seemed off, like she was avoiding my eyes the whole night. When we finally got home, I asked her straight out, "What the hell was that about? Why are you texting Jake?" Her reaction, man, she didn't blow up or deny it. She just froze, like a deer in headlights. Then she started fumbling through explanations. "He texted me first. He's your roommate. I didn't want to be rude. It wasn't like that, I swear." And yeah, part of me wanted to believe her, because Sarah has never been shady like that before. But another part of me kept replaying Jake's words. "Dude, she's into me." And suddenly it didn't sound so impossible anymore. The more I thought about it, the more cracks started showing in my memory. Sarah laughing a little too hard at Jake's dumb jokes. Sarah hanging back in the kitchen with him while I was outside. Sarah mentioning things Jake told her. Stories I knew I hadn't shared. Small things I brushed off before, now suddenly suspicious. That's when it hit me. Jake had been slowly working his way into her world. Not aggressively, just little things. Texting her about shows they both liked, asking her random favor questions late at night, finding ways to make himself the fun one. And Sarah, being the kind-hearted person she is, probably thought she was just being nice. But Jake doesn't do just being nice. He does hooks. He latches on until people get tangled without realizing it. And the worst part? He wanted me to know. That's why he showed the screenshots. Not just to embarrass me, but to mark his territory. Jake thrives on being the guy other people's girlfriends want. That night, after Sarah went to bed, I sat in the living room alone, staring at the blank TV screen. My mind kept circling back to the thing I knew about Jake, the thing I never told anyone, the secret he'd confessed months ago, drunk and crying at 3 a.m. when I had to drive him home from a bar. It wasn't just embarrassing. It wasn't just shameful. It was something that, if Sarah knew, would change the way she looked at him forever. And that's when I realized Jake had just handed me the stage. He wanted to humiliate me in front of everyone? Fine. But the next time he tried, I'd be ready. Because when the truth about Jake came out, it wouldn't just humiliate him, it would destroy him. Don't forget to subscribe. The week after the barbecue was like living in a pressure cooker. Every little sound in the apartment felt loaded. A door shutting. Jake's laugh drifting from his room. Sarah's phone buzzing at midnight. I couldn't stop watching them, how they interacted, the way Sarah responded. She swore to me nothing happened, and maybe that was true. But something had shifted. She seemed uncomfortable now, like Jake had crossed a line she didn't know how to push back against. Jake, on the other hand? He doubled down. One night, I walked into the kitchen and found him leaning against the counter with Sarah, telling some overblown story about the time he hooked up with twins in Cancun. He was laying it on thick, and Sarah was laughing, but not the way she laughs with me. It was tight, forced, like she didn't know how to leave the conversation without causing a scene. Jake saw me, grinned, and clapped me on the shoulder. "Your girl's got good taste, man. She thinks I'm hilarious." I wanted to punch him right there. Instead, I grabbed a glass of water and walked out before I lost it. But it kept happening. Jake would accidentally walk into Sarah while she was on the couch and plop down right next to her, even when there was space. He'd bring up their late-night texts and casual conversation just to watch my reaction. One night he even said, "If you ever screw up, Alex, don't worry. I'll take care of Sarah for you." He winked. He actually winked. Sarah laughed it off, but later she pulled me aside. "Jake makes me uncomfortable sometimes, but I don't want to cause drama between you guys." And that right there was the crack in the wall. Sarah wasn't defending him anymore. She was admitting he was pushing boundaries. That's when I knew I wasn't imagining things. Jake wasn't just being cocky. He was actively trying to wedge himself between us. The thing is, Jake has always been desperate for validation. He thrives on it. And the secret he told me that night months ago? It explained everything. He'd been drunk, slurring, crying into a half-empty bottle of Jack Daniels while I drove him home. He admitted he couldn't perform. Not once, not twice. He said every single time he'd gotten close with a woman in the past 2 years, it ended the same way. He felt broken, ashamed, and terrified people would find out. And now, here he was, puffing his chest at my girlfriend like some alpha male. I hadn't told Sarah. Not yet. I didn't want to kick a man while he was down, even if he was being an asshole. But after that week, after the constant digs, the smirks, the way he was testing her and humiliating me, I started planning when and how I was going to let the truth out. Because Jake wanted an audience. And I was going to give him one. 2 weeks after that barbecue, one of our friends hosted another get-together, this time a house party. I wasn't sure I even wanted to go. The thought of Jake running his mouth again made my stomach churn, but Sarah convinced me. "If we don't go, it'll look like we're hiding. Don't let him win like that." So we went. And of course, Jake was already there when we arrived, beer in hand, holding court in the living room like he owned the place. He saw us walk in and smirked, like the whole night was some private joke between us. For a while, it was fine. I stuck with Sarah, we chatted with a few friends, and I almost convinced myself Jake wouldn't pull anything this time. But around 11, when the drinks had been flowing and the music was loud, he struck. I was out back grabbing another beer when I heard laughter erupt from the living room. I stepped inside, and my chest tightened instantly. Jake was in the middle of the crowd again, phone in hand. More screenshots, more texts. And this time, he wasn't just hinting. He was reading them out loud. See, look, Sarah asking me if I'm up, asking what I'm doing. Cute, right? I told you, she's into me. People laughed nervously, like they didn't know if it was funny or just awkward. Sarah looked mortified, frozen on the couch with wide eyes like she'd been caught in headlights. And Jake? Jake was loving it. He was eating up every ounce of attention, grinning like the king of the world. Man, Alex, hate to say it, but maybe she picked the wrong roommate. Something in me snapped. I walked straight into the circle, loud enough for everyone to hear. You want to play this game, Jake? Fine. But if you're going to tell stories, let's tell the whole truth. He blinked at me, still smiling, but there was a flicker of panic in his eyes. I looked right at Sarah, then at the group. My voice was calm, too calm. What Jake didn't mention is why he's so obsessed with proving women want him. It's because even if they do, he can't do anything about it. Not now, not for the last 2 years. Isn't that right, Jake? The room went dead silent. Jake's face flushed red instantly. He stammered, "Shut the up, Alex, that's not—" But it was too late. I dropped the grenade, and everyone saw the explosion. Sarah's expression changed in an instant, from embarrassment to realization to something like disgust. She stood up and stared at him. Is that true? Jake's jaw clenched, his whole body rigid, like he wanted to scream or punch something. He didn't answer. He couldn't. And in that silence, Sarah's interest in him, the little flicker of curiosity that had been there, died right in front of me. She shook her head, muttered, "You're pathetic," and walked outside. Jake threw his beer at the wall, glass shattering across the hardwood, and stormed out of the house, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. Everyone just stood there, stunned. A few people whispered. Someone laughed awkwardly. And me? I felt this weird, shaky calm, like I'd finally taken back control. But I also knew something. Jake wasn't the type to take humiliation quietly. And if I just lit the match in front of everyone, Jake was going to come back with fire. Don't forget to subscribe. Update. Wow. Okay, I did not expect my post to blow up like this. I honestly thought maybe a handful of people would read it, nod, and move on. But I've been sitting here scrolling through all your comments, and holy shit, some of you went in on Jake. Couple things to clear up since people kept asking. 1. Yes, the screenshots were real. Before anyone says maybe Jake faked them, no, they weren't fake. Sarah did text him, late at night, more than once. But what he conveniently left out was that he started most of those conversations. He'd send something dumb like, "You up?" or "LOL can't sleep," and she'd just politely answer. It wasn't flirty, it wasn't dirty, it was awkward small talk. But of course, when you cut half the messages, it looks way worse. 2. Sarah and I talked. After the party, when things blew up, she admitted she'd been naive about it. She didn't want to be rude, didn't realize Jake was spinning it into some fantasy in his head. She actually showed me her phone, whole threads. And yeah, she was right. It read like she was entertaining him, but not encouraging him. So we're okay, I think. Not perfect, but I don't feel betrayed the way I did that night. 3. Jake's meltdown. You guys weren't kidding when you said humiliated guys don't take it well. After he stormed out, he went full toddler tantrum. He smashed a beer bottle outside, yelled about how I'd ruined his life, and even tried to come back in before our host locked the door. He ended up peeling out of the driveway so fast he left tire marks. Class act. And yeah, the secret I revealed. Him not being able to perform. That wasn't easy to put out there. A lot of you said I went too far, that it was cruel. Maybe it was. I won't lie, I wrestled with that. But the thing is, he spent weeks trying to humiliate me, trying to wedge into my relationship, dragging Sarah into his power games. He wanted to paint me as weak, and I couldn't let that stand. Also, for those saying, "Dude, Jake's gonna retaliate," oh, trust me, I know. The guy thrives on chaos. He's not just gonna slink away. If anything, I'm bracing myself because knowing Jake, he's going to find a way to escalate. And to the commenter who wrote, Bet he's gonna start some creepy campaign to make Sarah jealous now. Yeah, thanks for that image. Now I'm paranoid. Anyway, appreciate all the advice, even the wild ones. Shout out to the person who suggested I fill his shampoo bottles with Nair. Tempting, not gonna lie. I'll keep you posted, because something tells me Jake isn't done. Not by a long shot. The days after that party were like waiting for a storm. Jake barely came home. When he did, it was quick, slamming his door, stomping around, not saying a word. But the silence wasn't relief. It was worse. It felt like living with a time bomb that hadn't gone off yet. Then it happened. I got home from work one night and the apartment was trashed. Not messy, wrecked. Couch cushions slashed open with a knife, beer spilled all over the carpet, one of my framed photos of Sarah and me shattered on the floor. And on the wall, in thick black Sharpie, Jake had scrawled, "Liar." I just stood there, my chest tight, trying to process. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely pull my phone out. I texted him. "What the hell is this?" He replied instantly. "You ruined me. I'm just returning the favor." And then, a minute later, "Sarah deserves to know the real you." That made my stomach drop. Because if there's one thing Jake is good at, it's twisting stories. I didn't know what the real you even meant, but I knew he was going to spin something. Sure enough, Sarah called me not even half an hour later, voice sharp. "Jake just sent me screenshots of you, talking about him. What is going on?" I rushed over to her place, heart pounding. She showed me her phone. Jake had dug up old messages from when I first vented to a friend about how hard it was living with him. Stuff like, "He's such a leech, I can't wait until I move out." Nothing crazy, just roommate frustration. But Jake had cropped and stitched them to look like I'd been plotting against him for months. Sarah looked shaken, not angry, but unsettled. "Why is he doing this?" she asked. I told her the truth. "Because I embarrassed him. He can't let it go." That night, while I was still at Sarah's, my neighbor texted me a photo. Jake had dragged my laundry bag out onto the balcony and set it on fire. Actual flames. The fire department had to come. I swear I stood there in Sarah's kitchen, staring at the photo, and felt something snap inside me. Up until then, I'd been reacting. Letting Jake set the terms, letting him humiliate and escalate. But watching my clothes burn, knowing he'd gone that far, that's when I knew. It was time to end this. Not quietly. Not with another private talk. I was going to take Jake apart in front of the same crowd he loved performing for. And this time, he wouldn't come back from it. I spent the next week thinking about Jake nonstop. Not about the damage, though I had to drop hundreds on cleanup and fire damage fees, but about who he was at his core. Jake was obsessed with image. That's why he paraded Sarah's texts around. That's why he couldn't stand losing face at the party. For him, humiliation was worse than pain. So that's exactly where I decided to hit him. Our mutual friend Matt was throwing a birthday party that weekend. Big one. 30 people, maybe more. And I knew Jake wouldn't be able to resist showing up. He was like a moth to flame with attention. I asked Sarah to come with me. She hesitated at first, understandably. But when I told her I was done letting Jake control the narrative, she agreed. The plan was simple. Use Jake's own hunger for the spotlight against him. Sure enough, he arrived halfway through the night, swaggering like nothing had happened, already cracking jokes loud enough for everyone to hear. People gave him side eyes but still laughed, because that's what Jake was good at, making people forget why they hated him, until I stood up. "Hey everyone," I said, raising my voice over the music. Since Jake likes putting people's private business on display, maybe it's only fair we all get the full story. The room went quiet instantly. Jake froze, beer halfway to his mouth. I pulled out my phone. "Remember those texts Jake showed you? The ones that made Sarah look bad? Here's the part he left out." I mirrored my screen to the TV. Matt's setup made it easy. And there it was. The unedited threads Sarah had shown me. Full conversations. Sarah being polite. Jake fishing, pushing, asking if she was awake at 2 a.m., trying to get her attention. The crowd murmured, people shifting uncomfortably. Jake sputtered, "You can't just..." I cut him off. And while we're clearing the air, let's not forget what happened after I embarrassed you last time. You trashed my apartment. You burned my clothes. The fire department had to come. Want to deny that, Jake? I've got photos. I swiped, and there it was. The neighbor's photo of Jake standing by the smoking laundry bag, lighter in hand. The silence was brutal. People looked at Jake like he was radioactive. Sarah's arms were crossed, her expression stone cold. And then I finished him. This is who Jake really is. A guy so desperate for attention he'll torch someone's life, literally, just to feel like the main character. You wanted an audience, Jake? Congratulations, you've got one. The room erupted. Some people laughed, some whispered, a couple actually booed. Jake's face went crimson. He hurled his beer across the room, missing the wall and soaking the carpet, and screamed, "You're dead, Alex, dead!" before shoving his way out the door. Everyone was staring after him, wide-eyed. And me? For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could actually breathe. Jake wasn't just humiliated this time. He was exposed. But even as I stood there, heart pounding, I knew this wasn't over. Guys like Jake don't just disappear when you take their mask off. They get uglier. Update 2. Okay, so, y'all weren't kidding when you said Jake wouldn't just roll over. I thought outing him at Matt's party would be the final nail in the coffin. Turns out it was more like lighting a stick of dynamite and walking away. First off, thanks for the comments. Some of you had me laughing so hard I nearly spit out my coffee, especially the guy who said, "Jake's the kind of dude who'd lose a staring contest with a mirror." Accurate. But also, a lot of you warned me he'd escalate. And holy hell, you were right. Here's what happened after the birthday party. Jake went nuclear on social media. He made this long, rambling post about me being a psychopath who's jealous of him and manipulated Sarah into hating him. He even tagged half our friend group like some courtroom summoning. Problem is, people had already seen the receipts I showed on Matt's TV. So his post got more laughing emojis than likes. A couple friends even commented, "Bro, we were literally there, stop." Which of course only made him angrier. That night, he started blowing up my phone. Calls, texts, voice messages where he was sobbing 1 second and screaming the next. One gem. "You think you're better than me? You're nothing, Alex. Nothing. Sarah's gonna see that." I blocked him. So he showed up at the apartment at 2 a.m., pounding on the door so hard my upstairs neighbor threatened to call the cops. I didn't answer. He sat outside my door for almost an hour, alternating between begging, "Come on, man, we can fix this," and raging, "You ruined my life." Eventually, he staggered off. Here's the kicker. Sarah texted me the next morning saying Jake had DM'd her a wall of text about how he was the only one who truly understood her, and that I was toxic. She sent me screenshots. It was unhinged, like full manifesto-level rambling. She blocked him too. So yeah, Jake's burned every bridge he had left. But I can't shake this feeling like he's not done. Every time I hear a car pull up outside, my stomach knots. Every buzz on my phone, I wonder if it's another number he's using. Some of you suggested filing a restraining order. Honestly, I'm considering it. I used to think Jake was just an arrogant jerk, but now, he feels dangerous. Like a guy with nothing left to lose. And that's the part that scares me. Because if this is how far he'll go over being humiliated, I don't even want to imagine what his next move looks like. The week after Jake's social media implosion felt like living in a horror movie where you don't know when the jump scare is coming. At first, it was small. Anonymous numbers texting me things like, "You'll regret this," or "TikTok, liar." I blocked them, but new ones kept popping up. My email got spammed with fake signups, junk newsletters, porn subscriptions, hundreds of them. Classic petty harassment. But then it escalated. One night, Sarah and I came back to my apartment and found the front door wide open. My stomach dropped. I knew I'd locked it. Inside, everything was overturned. Dresser drawers pulled out, couch flipped, silverware scattered across the kitchen floor. Nothing stolen. Just chaos. And on my bedroom wall, written in red spray paint, "Snakes get cut." Sarah gasped. I just stood there, frozen, my heart pounding like it was going to crack my ribs. The smell of paint was sharp in the air. My hands actually shook dialing 911. The cops came, took photos, filed a report. But they were blunt. Unless you've got video of him doing this, it's your word against his. Jake knew that. He knew exactly how far he could push without getting nailed. And sure enough, the next day, he upped the game. I was at work when my phone started blowing up. Friends were tagging me in a Facebook post Jake had made, a live video. He was sitting in his car, red-eyed, ranting. Alex thinks he's a hero, but everyone needs to know what kind of monster he really is. Then he started holding up pieces of my life, stolen stuff, my mail, old bills, even a photo frame Sarah had given me. He must have swiped them during the break-in. He waved them at the camera, screaming about how I was fake and dangerous. The comment section was brutal. People were roasting him in real time, telling him to get help, calling him pathetic. But watching him unravel live, broadcasting my personal shit to strangers, that made my blood boil. Sarah was shaking beside me, whispering, "He's unhinged. He's going to hurt someone." And for the first time, I believed it. Because Jake wasn't just trying to win anymore. He was trying to destroy. And standing there, watching that live video, I realized if I didn't shut him down for good, he wasn't going to stop until someone got hurt. I didn't sleep that night after Jake's live stream. Neither did Sarah. We stayed at her place with the deadbolt locked, every creak in the hallway making us flinch. By the next morning, I'd had enough. I filed for a restraining order. It wouldn't stop him instantly, but it was something. Proof on paper that I wasn't just paranoid. But Jake wasn't going to wait for paperwork. That Friday, I came home from work to find him standing in the parking lot of our building. Just standing there, leaning against his car, arms crossed. Like he'd been waiting for me. My pulse spiked. I thought about turning around, but his eyes locked on me and I knew I couldn't. "Alex," he said, smiling too wide, "we need to talk." I didn't answer. I just walked toward the building. He followed. "You think you won, huh? You think Sarah's gonna stick around after she sees who you really are? After I tell her everything?" His voice was rising, cracking. People in the lot started turning their heads. I kept walking, heart pounding. Then I heard his footsteps quicken. The next thing I knew, he grabbed my shoulder and spun me around. His face was red, eyes wild. "You ruined my life," he screamed, spit flying. "I should—" And that's when Sarah's voice cut through. "Should what, Jake?" She'd pulled up behind me without me noticing, her phone in her hand, recording. Jake froze, his face twisted, caught between rage and panic. "Turn that off," he snarled, reaching toward her. But by then, half the parking lot was watching. My neighbor shouted, "Leave her alone!" Someone else yelled they were calling the cops. And I just said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "This is who Jake really is. Remember that." Jake looked around, realizing for the first time he had no audience left to charm, no one left to fool. Just witnesses. The cops showed up minutes later. Between the vandalism photos, the live stream, and Sarah's recording, they had enough to cuff him right there. He screamed the whole time, wild, incoherent, thrashing like a kid throwing a tantrum. As they shoved him into the squad car, I finally felt it, the weight lifting. Jake had wanted to be the main character so badly, and now? He was. Just not the way he dreamed. Sarah slipped her hand into mine, her grip tight but steady. "He can't touch us anymore," she whispered. And for the first time in weeks, I believed her.